Hey, what is up guys? I feel like coming at you with a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and today we're going to be doing an update on my pure Trickstar deck profile for July 2019. Now before we jump into the profile, I want to remind you guys that this deck is not a competitive Trickstar deck. It is not going to win your locals. It is a deck designed to highlight as many of the cards in the Trickstar archetype as possible, and basically try to win using the new field spell as well as as many of the link monsters as possible to try and not droll and reincarnation your opponent. Now, of course, that is in the deck, but it's not the primary focus. Now that that's out of the way, let's jump into it, guys, and I hope you guys like the deck. Starting things off, we have 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. Pretty standard in Trickstar decks, so when she's normal summoned, you can go ahead and grab any Trickstar card you want from your deck to your hand. As well as that, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you get to burn them for 200 immediately after it resolves. Pretty standard why this card's a 3 of. She's also an 1800 beat stick, worst comes to worst. Similarly, of course, we play 3 copies of Trickstar Lacris. Pretty standard as well. She has a couple of effects. Her first effect is as a quick effect, you can target a Trickstar monster you control. After revealing her, bounce that Trickstar to your hand and special summon her. Because this is a quick effect and it's not a hard once per turn or even a once per turn, you can chain 3 Lacrises to one other Trickstar monster out on the field, which is people used to do and probably still do with Candina in the more competitive variants. Her other effect is if your opponent adds a card or cards from their deck, cards to their hand, not just from the deck, you get to burn them for 200 points for each card they add. It's pretty disgusting, so definitely want to be running 3 copies of her. Not only does she deal a ton of damage through burn, she's also able to get you 3 bodies on the table really easily to get some more materials for your Link summoning. Moving on, guys, we have 1 copy of Trickstar Nightshade. Nightshade is a monster I could easily see bumping up to 2 copies. She is a level 1, meaning she is a 1-for-1 target, and her effect is when she's used for the Link summon of a Trickstar Link monster, you can bring her back. So obviously in combination with Trickstar Bloom, you go ahead and get a free Link to Trickstar, so a really easy way to summon that Holy Angel. And also you can get rid of some pretty, irrelevant Trickstars who are bricking up your hand with 1-for-1, as well as that if you have a live stage, you can play 1-for-1, bring her out, play live stage, get that Trickstar back. Works really well with Candina, discarding Candina for 1-for-1, bringing out Nightshade, playing Live Arena, getting Candina back, and normally Candina. Do some really cool combos there. Moving on, 2 copies of Lilybell. Lilybell is a monster a lot of people run at 1. I like running her at 2 just because I have an extra copy if I need it. She can attack your opponent directly. She's added to your hand outside drawing. You get special summon her, and when she deals battle damage to your opponent, you get to add a Trickstar monster from your grave to hand. So very nice. She's also level 2, making her one of the few monsters that can actually make Diva Dearest if for some reason you actually want to Link summon Diva Dearest. Continuing on, we have 1 copy of Mandrake. Mandrake could easily be swapped out for your second copy of Nightshade if you want to. So her ability, she has 2 of them. Her first ability is when she's sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can special summon her in defense mode, but banish her if she leaves the field. Her second effect is if she's sent from the field to the graveyard for the Link summon of a Trickstar Link monster. You can target a monster your opponent's Link monster points to and destroy it. Each effect is a hard once per turn. You're definitely only going to use her for her primary ability, not really going to use her for a secondary one. Good card to discard for 1-for-1, as well as that Crimson Heart is also a good way, even if you're running Twin Twister as well, she's good to discard for that as well. Moving on, 2 copies of Trickstar Carabin. You could get away with 3, but I feel 3 can get a bit bricky in this particular deck. Her 2 effects are if you control no monsters or all your monsters are Trickstars, you can special summon her, so she's a free body on the table. As well as that, in the damage step, you can ditch her from your hand to double the original attack of a Trickstar monster that is battling until the end of the turn. Each effect can only be used as a hard once per turn. And you can only use you can only use 1 effect per turn as well. So that's why I kind of don't like running 3, because like if I open up with 3, I can special summon 1, and then like I can't use the other one. Or if you open up with 2, you know what I mean, if you get 2 in hand. So I think 2 is fine, and then you play for your third. What would be my third Carabin is 1 copy of Honest. So you can combo them off together. Honest will gain the opponent's monster's attack, which you will add to the double of your Trickstar monster's attack. Unfortunately, you don't double the Trickstar, you don't gain your opponent's attack, then double it, which is a bit upsetting, but just because of wording, that's how it works. And rounding off the monsters, we have 2 copies of Droll Unlock and 2 copies of Ash Blossom. Sadly, I would, you can run 3 Ash, you can run 3 Droll. I just don't have space in the deck to run 3 copies of each, and I feel like 2 is fine. Especially because, again, this is not a competitive deck, more about playing with friends. And there are times you need to stop things going off, but sometimes I want to let my friends have some fun and play the game every so often. Moving on to the spells, we have 3 copies of Light Stage. When it is activated, go ahead and grab any Trickstar monster you want from your deck to your hand. When your opponent takes battle or effect damage from a Trickstar monster, give them an extra 200 points of damage. Really handy when you're using the Link Climbing with Holy Angel, burning them whenever you summon a Link monster. Summon a monster to a zone she points to. And then their effect is you can target a set spell trap your opponent controls, either force them to activate it in response, or they must activate it in the end phase if it is legally possible to do so. If not, the card is removed. However, Light Stage must stay on the field to resolve this effect, so you got to be careful with that one. Continuing on, 2 copies of Live Stage, only have 1 copy at the moment. Has 3 effects. Its first effect is when it's activated, you can grab any Trickstar monster you want from your grave, add it back to your hand. Second effect is second and third effect, once activated, lock you into only summoning Trickstar monsters for the rest of the turn, which isn't too much of an issue for this particular build, which is kind of the reason why you probably don't see it in more of the competitive variants. So its second effect is if you control a Trickstar Link monster, you can special summon a Trickstar token, which is really nice. And its other effect is if your opponent controls a card in their spell trap card zone, you can special summon one as well, which is really nice. But you can only use each effect once per turn. Otherwise, it'd be pretty crazy. But it's really nice that Trickstar's finally got a way to make tokens and swarm the board, obviously, as their Link monsters. All of them bar 1 are actually linked to specifically having Trickstar monsters, so it's nice that they have tokens. Next up, 2 copies of Magical Laurel. Magical Laurel is basically a premature burial for the archetype. So you equip a Trickstar monster from your grave and special summon it. When the equipped monster deals battle or effect damage to an opponent, you can special summon another Trickstar monster you want from your hand. You can only use each effect of Magical Laurel as a once per turn, and you can only play one as a once per turn. Works really well with pretty much any monster in the archetype, specifically a card such as, if you want to bring back Bella Madonna, or if you want to bring back Foxy Witch specifically, so you can get extra burn damage and then special summon another Trickstar straight out from the hand. Very nice card to run at 2 copies. Rounding off the spells, we have one copy of 1-for-1 for summoning out Nightshade. 2 copies of Terraforming because we're playing 5 field spells in the deck. Not too much of an issue as they both do different things, and I feel like you do need to run them together. 2 copies of Called by the Grave to hit some graveyard cards, which is nice. Again, limited on space. 2 Cyclone to destroy or banish back row. You can run Twin Twister if you really want to try and get the maximum efficiency off your Mandrake, but again, Twin Twister is something I'd side and probably swap them out depending on what I'm going up against. And finally, 2 copies of Polar Desires and 1 copy of Monster Reborn. Don't have any desires at the moment. Probably just haven't really felt the need to get them until now. Desires isn't too much of an issue in this deck because your Bella Madonna only burns based on the number of Trickstar monsters in your grave with different names, so banishing an extra copy of the ones you run multiple copies of isn't too much of an issue. Moving on to the traps, guys. 3 copies of Reincarnation, banish your opponent's hand, they draw the same amount. We mostly use it for its second effect in this variant, which is we banish it from the grave to summon a Trickstar monster back, which is really nice. Lots of obvious synergies there. And then finally rounding it off with 2 Slalom Strike and 1 Solar Morning. Obviously, you could swap these out for imperms if you wanted to, or evenlies. It's totally up to you. Moving on to the extra deck, guys. Now, the entire extra deck we play is Trickstars. You can run non-Trickstar cards in the extra deck. You just need to remember that your live stage does lock you into only summoning Trickstars, which isn't really a problem for me in this bed, because that's what I want to do. I want to highlight Trickstars. So keeping that in mind, you're going to just see Trickstar monsters in this extra deck. Starting things off, 2 copies of Trickstar Bloom. So she's a Link 1. You make her with any level 2 or lower Trickstar monster. So she's limited to specifically Mandrake, Nightshade, or Lilybell. Mostly you use Nightshade, because then when Nightshade is used to make Bloom, you special summon Nightshade back and go straight into a Link 2. Bloom's first effect is that if this card is Link Summon, you can force your opponent to draw a card, which is really nice, get some extra burn. Or if you really want to, you can make this, draw them, and then reincarnation them if you didn't get 2 reincarnations, if you really want to do that. Her second effect is if a Trickstar monster she points to would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can burn your opponent for 200 points for each card in their hand. You can only use each effect as a hard once per turn. You won't necessarily make both of them, so she could easily get away with one of them, but sometimes that extra 200 damage can help a lot if you can make a second one, so it's down to personal preference. Next up, 2 copies of Holy Angel, which is probably one of the most important Link monsters in the extra deck. Key piece of your burn combo. Whenever a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone she points to, burn your opponent for 200 points of damage. Trickstar monsters she points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. And of course, each time your opponent takes battle or effect damage from a Trickstar monster, takes effect damage from a Trickstar monster, she gains attack equal to the damage they took until the end of the turn. Obviously, you're going to be summoning a lot of monsters to zone she points to. She's going to get a lot of attack. And then, of course, if you Madonna for a ton, Holy Angel gets a lot of attack. Then you swing, deal some damage, and finish them off, which is very, very nice. Could get away with running 3 if you really want to. I feel 2 is fine. You're either going to go off or be absolutely stomped hard, and it's just how the deck works. You either go off or you don't. It's just Yu-Gi-Oh, to be brutally honest. Continuing on, we have 2 copies of Trickstar Crimson Heart. So once per turn, you can discard a Trickstar card from your hand. Lots of cool discard targets. Obviously, Reincarnation and Mandrake being the 2 key ones that you'd want to discard to force you and your opponent to both draw a card. If you activate this effect while you control 2,000 or more life points in your opponent, you get to draw 2, which is really nice. Her other effect is if a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone she points to, you gain 200 life points. Not super relevant, but can help in a pinch, so it's nice. Moving on to our 2 one-off Link 2s. So we have 1 copy of Dividiris and 1 copy of Trickstar Black Catbat. Catbat being one of my favorite Link monsters favorite monsters in the entire Trickstar archetype. So we'll start things off with her. So she's has effects that say each time a monster or monsters she points to is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave, your opponent takes 200 points of damage. Each time an opponent's monster takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, face-up monsters they control lose 200 attack till the end of for each monster she points to until the end of the turn, which is really nice. You can lower their attack quite a lot, but we're not really a battle-focused variant, but she's really good in battle-focused variants. But we still run her at 1 because she's still an extra 200 points of damage from Madonna, which, believe it or not, can make a huge difference. Dividiris, on the other hand, is a really good card as well. So she requires 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters, so she's very limiting to what can make her, but you can always make her with the tokens. You can only control 1 of her. If she's special summoned, you can burn your opponent 200 points of damage immediately, which combos off really well with Holy Angel out on the field and your field spell. That's a free 800 damage right there off the bat. And then her other effect is each time your opponent normal or special summons a monster or monsters, inflict them for 200 points of damage. Now, I believe the ruling on this is if they summon monsters, they burn. It's not for each because it doesn't list that as it does. It lists it specifically for each on Rahode and Lycris. So I believe if they do, for example, Pendulum 5, you still only burn them for 200. But in the way that a lot of decks do a lot of fast special summoning these days and mass summonings, Dividiris can be pretty handy. You can also float into her from the destruction of Foxy Witch, which is really nice. Speaking of Foxy, we have 2 copies because she's one of the best monsters in the entire extra deck for Trickstars. She's generic for fairies, which is surprising. And when this Link Summon card is special summon, burn your opponent for 200 points for every card they currently control, which is nuts. That's when she's special summoned. If she has been Link Summoned and destroyed by battle or card effect, you can burn your opponent again for 200 points for every card they control, then float into a Link 2 or lower Trickstar monster. You can only use each effect as a hard once per turn. Obviously, the best one to float into is Dividiris because you ignore her specific summoning condition of 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters, which is really nice. The fact that she burns on special summon works really well with cards like Magical Laurel, like I mentioned before, as well as Reincarnation. If you Laurel her back, you immediately get to special summon another Trickstar monster, which is pretty cool, guys. So she's easily one of my favorite monsters, and you can do a ton of damage with her pretty easily. And being a Link 3, she's not super hard to summon, as you want to get Link monsters in the graveyard, any more monsters in the graveyard, to give your Madonna as much burn potential as possible. We play 1 copy of Trickstar Defundium. She's very situational. So when she attacks while pointing to a Trickstar Link monster, you can target banished Trickstar cards up to the number of Link monsters your opponent controls, add them back to your hand, and then for every card you add, she gets an extra 1,000 attack. Very situational, so especially because of her arrows are kind of awkward. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. There are games where you will make her, and there's games where you'll never even touch her. So at the end of the day, she's, again, an extra 200 points of damage if you can get her into the graveyard. Rounding off the errand of the Link monsters, guys, we have 2 copies of Bella Madonna. So if this Link Summon card points to no monsters, she's unaffected by other cards' activated effects. Unfortunately, it does include your own, so you can't drop a caravan on top of her unless she points to a monster. Her other effect is if she points to no monsters, there's a hard once per turn. You can burn your opponent for 200 points of damage for every Trickstar monster in your grave with a different name. Now, the way her arrows work is that Holy Angel can actually point to her and protect her from destruction by battle or card effect, as well as that Madonna can still activate her effect. So if you can Link Climb and get as much done and do Madonna and all that in the main phase, you're going to give in main phase 1, you're going to give your Holy Angel a ton of attack where she can just swing and finish them off, hopefully pretty easily. So she's very nice. You're never probably going to make 2, but you always kind of can if you need, because, again, if you get Madonna in grave, it's an extra 200 points of damage. And the last card we have in our extra deck is just Flavor. You're never going to make it. It's Sweet Guitar. She's cute, and I like her. So I wanted to have her in the extra deck just for Spirit because I had space. But of course, guys, if you want to, you can easily run other cards like Borrow Load. You can run the Nightmares. But remember, of course, like I said, your life stage does lock you into only summoning Trickstars, so you got to be careful. But anyway, guys, that is it for the deck. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe and leave some comments below with your thoughts. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you want to see some cool duels, I did recently participate in a duel that was uploaded on Will the Reaper's channel. We did Harpies vs. Cyverse, which was basically My Valentine versus Playmaker, which was pretty cool. So jump over to his channel, give him some love. He's almost at 1,000 subs. I know he'd really appreciate it. As well as that, be sure if you haven't already to vote in the structure deck voting. The top 5 does include Charmers and Trap Tricks that I have featured on the channel before, and I'm hoping to do a video very soon talking about what we may potentially get in a Charmer and Trap Trick structure deck, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you for my next video.